On today's show, ESPN says that Cavs forward Evan Mobley has the chance to be a player in the league that takes a giant leap forward this season. I'll tell you why I think they're right next on this edition of Locked On Cavs.
You are Locked On Cavs, your daily Cleveland Cavaliers podcast.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? I'm Danny Cunningham. You might know me from my time covering the Cleveland Cavaliers, places like my new Substack, The Inside Shot, 92.3 The Fan, and Cleveland Magazine, as well as a number of other stops along the way. I want to say thank you to you for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. You can find the show anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else. Drop us a 5-star rating. Leave us a nice review as well. Also, check us out on YouTube. Just search Locked On Cavs on YouTube. If you're watching this video right now, hit that like button for me. So hit that thumbs up button, click the subscribe button, and hit the notification bell so you know when this video and all the other videos that are awesome on Locked On Cavs go up immediately. Today's show brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. So ESPN earlier this week, I believe it was on Monday morning, they released their players to watch, their breakout player list for the 2024-2025 season. Who was at the top of that list? The very first player listed, of course, it was Evan Mobley. Evan, of course, going into year number 4 with the Cleveland Cavaliers, signed a max contract extension this summer. And as I've been talking about on this show, as I've been writing about, Evan is the player that controls the ceiling for not only the 2024-2025 Cleveland Cavaliers, but the Cleveland Cavaliers for the next several years. Donovan Mitchell is going to be able to carry this team and this franchise quite a ways because he's that talented. But Evan Mobley is the one that can lift up the ceiling for this organization. If the Cavs want to take the next leap and get into the top of the Eastern Conference, make a run at the NBA Finals, Evan Mobley needs to take a giant leap himself. ESPN thinks this is possible. I think this is possible. I've talked about it a bunch where I think there are a lot of areas where Evan can grow offensively. Defensively, I don't think he needs to take any step forward. Like, I think the defender he is, which is already a great defender, doesn't need to change. If he gets better on that end, that's awesome, but it's not something that I think the Cavs need to bank on happening in order for them to reach their goals. What needs to go forward is things on the offensive end of the floor. So Jeremy Woo wrote this for ESPN, and one of the quotes that he put at the very bottom of the piece about Evan Mobley, because there were 10 other players as well. The only other player that was mentioned in this category was Orlando's Franz Wagner. So it was Evan Mobley and Franz Wagner, the two guys that they were, quote, the pieces are in place to break through as full-fledged all-stars. Evan Mobley, Franz Wagner, the two guys that ESPN thinks this is possible for. So one, having Evan in that area, I think is a really good start to things for the Cavs, but he does need to obviously go out and achieve these things. The last thing that Wu wrote in this article about Mobley was, if Mobley can take the leap, the Cavs might be able to take it with him. Now, the only thing I disagree with there is the Cavs might be able to take it with him. If Evan Mobley takes the leap and he becomes a full-fledged all-star, he becomes somebody that is fighting for all NBA votes at the end of the season, if he is even if he's one of the 20 best players in basketball this year, I don't see how the Cavs aren't awesome. I don't see a world in which Evan Mobley, other than injuries, obviously, that can tank anyone's season. But if Evan Mobley moves from where he's at right now, which is probably around the 35th best player in basketball, to a top 20 player in basketball, where you already have Donovan Mitchell, who is a top 15 at worst player in basketball. If you've got two guys in that top 20, I don't see how the Cavs aren't awesome. Like, I don't see how they don't take that next leap. If Evan Mobley takes the leap and he gets there, the Cavs are going to do that too. Like, I don't think and this is a semantics argument, and I get that, but I don't think the Cavs might be able to take it with him. I think the Cavs do take it, whether he drags them along, him and Donovan Mitchell drag them along, or maybe other pieces of this roster take the leap too. All three things are entirely possible, but I don't see how, if Evan Mobley is awesome this year, the way ESPN thinks he can be, the Cavs aren't awesome. So what does this leap look like? As I mentioned, I think it's a lot on the offensive end of the floor. I think a lot of it is playmaking, where he has been somebody who has been unselfish throughout his career that hasn't translated yet into high assist numbers. I think that's going to change. And I wrote about this yesterday on the Inside Shot, where I think he's going to be used much more frequently as a playmaker this upcoming season under Kenny Atkinson than he was in previous seasons under JB Bickerstaff. So that's thing number one. That's the first area where I think you're going to see the most noticeable growth is you're going to see the basketball in his hands more frequently than it has been in years past. The other thing that, of course, is going to come up, and I think it is very important, but I don't know that it's the thing the Cavs think is the most important, and that's fine. But it's the three-point shot. If Evan Mobley is taking more three-point shots, if he goes from a low-volume three-point shooter, which he was last year at, I believe it was 1.2 attempts per game, to a medium-volume three-point shooter, which I would characterize as somewhere between 4 and 5.5 attempts per game. If Evan Mobley can live maybe even like 3.7 and 5 attempts per game, if Evan Mobley can live in that area, I think that is enough to really help to start to stretch out defenses when you combine what he could be doing with playmaking and the fact that he's just a little bit of a more viable threat from the outside. Those are things that I think look like an offensive leap. I think leading the team on the break, running off of misses, pushing the pace, a lot of stuff I've talked about with Evan. I think that's what this leap looks like. Now, ESPN did throw out the full-fledged all-star thing. What is a full-fledged all-star? To me, that is somebody that makes the all-star team, and it's not as if, oh, it's a nice story. This guy will be there for 1 year, might not ever be back. It's, to me, somebody that makes their first all-star team, and you can't necessarily pencil them in next year, but you expect them to be back at the all-star game several times to come. Like with Jarrett Allen. Jarrett Allen deserved to be an all-star the year he was an all-star. But was it surprising to anybody that he wasn't an all-star the next year? No, I don't think so. That being said, I thought he deserved to be an all-star last year. But if Jarrett Allen isn't anywhere near the all-star game this year, would anyone be surprised? No, I think you can have hope that he should be. But if Evan Mobley takes the leap forward and Jarrett Allen is not even in all-star discussion, I don't think that should come as some huge shock to people. Whereas if Evan Mobley makes the all-star team this year, I think it would be something that if he isn't at least in consideration next year and for many years to come, it would be a surprising thing. So that's where I think the whole full-fledged all-star terminology that ESPN used, that's sort of how I define that. Now, what does an all-star campaign look like for Evan Mobley? Let's start on the defensive end. I think it is doing exactly what he's been doing defensively, where he's been a terrific defender his entire time in the league. It's a rare thing for a big guy to come into the NBA and be awesome defensively. Evan Mobley did it as a rookie. In Evan Mobley's second year, he finished third for Defensive Player of the Year. He was first team all defense. That's the type of thing that he needs to continue to have. Last year, I thought he was very good defensively. Obviously, the fact that he was limited to, I think it was 50 games, took him out of any consideration for Defensive Player of the Year. Not that I think he was good enough to win it, but I think he was good enough to be on an all-defense team. So if he continues to play at an all-defense level, specifically a first-team all-defense level, that's going to get him some sway towards the All-Star game. Now, this is the All-Star game. It's not the you're really good at defense game. So that does mean that his offense needs to take a step forward. I think for Evan Mobley to get serious all-star consideration, he needs to be a guy that's averaging 20, maybe 20, even 2 points and 10 rebounds per game. I think that's entirely possible for him. I don't know that it is the most likely outcome, but I don't think that anyone should be surprised if Evan Mobley averages 20 and 10 this year, where he was at just under 16 and 9 last year. 20 and 10 is very possible, especially if he's got the basketball in his hands more and the Cavs are playing at a faster pace. I think those numbers absolutely have the possibility of going up. And then I would even add in that he needs to have 5 assists per game too, that playmaking needs to be something that boosts up a little bit more, because if the basketball is in his hands and he's doing those things, not only scoring, but creating points for others, that's another way where I think a lot of people will see him as being very impactful. And I don't know that I would expect Evan Mobley to be an all-star starter. When we think of all-stars, we think of the fans are voting on this. And I don't know that Evan Mobley is going to be a fan favorite when it comes to all-star voting. The players have a vote on this, and media members have a vote on this. Now, I think media members absolutely do their homework on this. I think a lot of players vote for their friends at certain points, and fans vote for the guys who are the most exciting. I don't know that Evan Mobley is ever going to be the most exciting. I don't know that players are going to vote for Evan Mobley unless he just really takes a giant leap forward. The media might, but that's for all-star starters. All-star reserves, those are voted upon by the coaches. And I think that the coaches will see the impact that Evan Mobley has that goes beyond just the box score. But I think having those good box score numbers is something that is a really good first step to making this happen. The other thing that I do think needs to happen for Evan Mobley to be considered to be an all-star, the Cavs need to be top 3 in the East in February or at the end of January when the all-star teams are decided. They need to be having a really good season. Because if the Cavs are like 5th in the East, even if Evan has been awesome and Donovan's been awesome, you know who's going to be the all-star between those two. It's going to be Donovan Mitchell because he's been there before. He's proven he is a superstar. The toughest all-star game to make is always your first. Once you establish that you are an all-star, it's easier to get back to the all-star game. Now, Donovan Mitchell has established himself, in my opinion at least, as a superstar. For the rest of his prime, as long as he's healthy, he should not miss an all-star game. That's how good he is. So if the Cavs are not in at least 3rd in the East, I think it becomes difficult to get a second all-star on that team because of how good the rest of the Eastern Conference is. So I do think that the Cavs need to be having a really, really good season too in order for Evan Mobley to make the all-star team. But if he plays at an all-star level, I think there's going to be a lot of correlation between how well he's playing and how many games the Cavs are winning. Now, tonight, the Cavs are back on the floor for the first time since mid-May. We're going to talk about what to look for in their first preseason game coming your way Tuesday night against the Chicago Bulls. That's straight ahead right here on Locked On Cavs. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel is America's #1 sports book, and it's the place that you should be going when you get an inkling, when you get a hunch, and when you're watching a game. You can also check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Where is that? That is with America's #1 sports book, FanDuel. FanDuel has everything you need. If you want to go to NBA, check out, they've got regular season wins totals. I talked about wins projections on Monday's podcast. Let's go look at the Boston Celtics, for example. FanDuel has them at 57.5 projected wins. Do you like the over? Do you like the under? I kind of like the over there. I'm not crazy about it. That might be one I want to stay away from. But then you go look at a team like the Chicago Bulls, where they're at 27.5. I kind of like the under there. I think the Bulls are going to sell off a few more pieces. I think they're going to be trying to, I don't know how successful they will be. I think they'll be trying to be in the Cooper Flag lottery race. So head on over to FanDuel, and as an added bonus here, you can get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet with FanDuel. You heard what I said. If you didn't, I'm going to slow it down. I'm going to rewind it. I'm going to say it again. You can get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 wager with FanDuel. So head on over to FanDuel.com. That's FanDuel.com and get started today with America's #1 sportsbook. Again, $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet with FanDuel. FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook. Thank you again for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. And as preseason gets rolling all across the NBA, there's news that has way more to do with the rest of the league than with the Cleveland Cavaliers. Where's your place to go for that? It should be Locked On NBA. It's got all the news, notes, analysis, entertainment that you need from across the NBA with a number of local and national experts. Head on over, check it out, Locked On NBA. It's available anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else. Check them out on YouTube as well. Just search Locked On NBA after you're done watching this. And you can be learning about the entire league, not just your Cleveland Cavaliers. A proud part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So the Cavs are taking on the Chicago Bulls tonight. If you're listening this or watching this Tuesday before 7 o'clock, they will be playing their first preseason game. If you are listening or watching to this after that game, well, some of this stuff might be dated, but a lot of it still, I think, can be fun to look back on and see how things did go. But there are a few things that I'm watching for with this first preseason game. The thing that I'm the most interested in, provided that everyone plays. Now, I'm recording this before a potential shoot around on Tuesday. Kenny Atkinson and the Cavs did not have availability on Monday, so I don't necessarily know what the plan is as of this moment for the Cavs in terms of who's playing, who's not playing. So I am speaking right now with the assumption that everybody will be available and everybody will play. So I need to lay that ground rule before I dive into this just a little bit deeper. So I am very interested in seeing not the starting five, because I know that group, but when the starting five is on the floor, how much is the ball in Evan Mobley's hands? How much is the ball in Donovan Mitchell's hands? How much is Darius Garland playing off the ball? Right? Because last year, I think we saw Donovan Mitchell be great as a playmaker. Evan Mobley, we've heard a lot about him as a playmaker throughout this training camp. What does that look like in action? How frequently are the Cavs going to that? How much are they still leaning on Darius Garland to be the guy that sets the table for everybody? What's that offense look like? What does the structure of the offense look like? I'm not necessarily looking to see what kind of sets they're running. I'm not looking to see all that stuff in the preseason because I don't think things are going to be too extravagant. But I'm looking to see how are things running? Who are things running through in the preseason? Because that I do think will be a somewhat significant tell towards the regular season. Is Evan Mobley the playmaker, the offensive hub, the offensive fulcrum that we think he can be? I don't know. And I'm not saying that it's going to be a finished product on Tuesday night. I think that'd be silly to think, but I think we can see some of it. Thing number two, I'm very interested in seeing on Tuesday night against the Chicago Bulls. Is there a pairing? Do we see the pairings again, where Donovan Mitchell was sort of paired with Jarrett Allen last year and Darius Garland was sort of paired with Evan Mobley last year? Do we see that again in preseason game number one? I don't know that we will. I don't know that we won't, but I think this will give sort of a clue into how Kenny Atkinson wants to operate. He's talked about having a 10, maximum 11 guy rotation. I don't think we will get some clues. We're not going to get definitive answers on that in preseason game number one. I think that's silly, but we can see sort of loose outlines of what he wants those pairings or those groupings to look like. And this is maybe something to look at in the first half. But if you think back to last year and years prior, JB Bickerstaff had said that he didn't want the Cavs to be without one of Darius Garland or Donovan Mitchell on the floor when both were healthy and not on minutes restrictions, right? Is Kenny Atkinson the same way? We don't know that right now. I don't believe he's been asked that. I know I have not asked him that. I don't think anyone else has either. So that is something that, we might find out. Like in the first quarter, are there minutes where they're both on the bench? If there are, that might be a sign as to say, okay, the Cavs are going to operate at times without either of those guys on the floor. And I would hope Evan Mobley is on the floor if that's the case, just for that point of playmaking. And that can kind of maybe be where you allow him to run the offense a little bit more. Or do we maybe see Donovan Mitchell and Evan Mobley together? I think that's a pairing that could look pretty good, but I want to see what it looks like in the preseason. Or is it just what it was? The next thing, very curious about, what do some of the bench players look like? And in particular, Jalen Tyson, because we've heard a lot of really good stuff about Jalen Tyson coming out of training camp, where he's looked awesome, and he's looked good without the basketball in his hands, which I think has been a concern of mine and a lot of people, because you think back to the Las Vegas Summer League, Jalen Tyson, I thought, looked terrific, but he had the ball in his hands all the time. And that's not how he's going to be able to operate when he's playing for the Cavs in the regular season, in the postseason, because they've got other guys that are going to fulfill those roles. They've got Donovan Mitchell. They've got Darius Garland. They've got Karis LeVert. They've got Max Strus. They've got Evan Mobley. And all of those guys, of course, are going to be higher on the pecking order than Jalen Tyson is. But what does Jalen Tyson look like away from the basketball and offense? That is something I think Cavs fans should be very, very curious about. And I think that we're going to get a little sneak preview of that on Tuesday night. We're going to find out a little bit if everyone plays, if he's playing alongside other guys that have better capability of being NBA lead ball handlers. What does his role look like and how well does he fit it? Because we've heard good things. I'm also very curious as far as when does Jalen Tyson enter the game? Is he playing in the first quarter? Is he playing in the first half? Is he not playing into the second half? I think all of those things will be clues, if you will, as far as what his standing is in the rotation for the Cavs. If he's somebody that is going to be playing significant minutes or legitimate rotation minutes on opening night, we're not going to find that out on Tuesday. But like a lot of other things, I think we can get some clues about that on Tuesday night against the Bulls. With it being the first preseason game, we're going to somewhat get our first look at a rotation. I'm going to make my best guess as to what I think the opening night rotation will be as of October 8th. That is straight ahead right here on Locked On Cavs. Today's show is brought to you by Game Time. Game Time is my go-to ticket marketplace, and it should be your go-to ticket marketplace as well. The Cavs are back. There are basketball games to be played. You're going to want to be at those basketball games. Maybe you want to go tonight. Game Time has great deals on Cavs games. They've got great deals on concerts. They've got great deals on, playoff baseball games. Game Time is the place that you should be going. It is my number one ticket marketplace. It should be your number one ticket marketplace too. Why is it my number one ticket marketplace? Well, it is that because they've got some features that I love. I love being able to go on the Game Time app, click on a seat that I'm interested in purchasing, and seeing what my view of the court or the field or the stage is going to look like. Game Time has that feature on their app. I absolutely love it, and I think you will too. Another thing that I cannot stand is being bombarded with taxes and fees at the last minute. I don't want to be surprised with how much I'm going to be paying for a ticket. So with the Game Time app, all I do is toggle on that all-in pricing feature, and I'm not surprised at the end of the day. That gives me clarity. It takes the guesswork out of buying tickets, and that's what I want this experience to be about for me. It's what I want the experience of buying tickets to be like for you. So head on over to Game Time, download their app, the Game Time app today, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. That's code LOCKEDONNBA, LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. Thank you again for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. You can find this show anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else. If you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you hit that thumbs up button for me, click the subscribe button, and hit the notification bell so you know when the latest Locked On Cavs content is headed your way. So the Cavs will open up preseason tonight as they take on the Chicago Bulls. Preseason game number 1 of 4 will be taking place at Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse. The rotation is something to watch. It's not going to be the final rotation, obviously, but it is something that I think can give us some clues as to what's going to be happening, what opening night could look like for the Cleveland Cavaliers. So what I wanted to do at the end of the show today is sort of sketch out what I think as of right now, as of October 8th, what the opening night rotation is going to look like. Now, Kenny Atkinson has talked about his ideal rotation size. So philosophically, it's 10 guys. I think he's going to have a really tough time getting down to 10. I do. I think it's very difficult to choose from the 14 players the Cavs have right now to getting down to 10 players. I just don't know how that's going to happen right away. I think at some point it might, but I think early in the season, with all of the depth the Cavs have, I think we're going to see an 11-guy rotation from the rip. That's where I think this is. So I think the starting 5 from last year, that ideal starting 5 that played 28 games together, is not going to change. I believe that the starting 5 is going to be Donovan Mitchell, Darius Garland, Max Strus, Evan Mobley, and Jared Allen. So that is 5 of our 11 players for the opening night rotation. Then I believe there are 3 guys coming off the bench that have playing time locked up. Those 3 would be Karis LeVert, Isaac Okoro, and Dean Wade. I don't see how those 3 guys don't factor into the opening night rotation. So that leaves us at 8 guys right now. We've got 3 more spots to dive into. I think Georges Niang is going to get one of those spots. This is an instance where I don't know that Georges Niang is going to be in the rotation at the end of the season, but I think Georges Niang is going to be in the rotation at the beginning of the season. I'd be surprised if he's not playing minutes opening night. So that is spot number 9. Spot number 10, I do think that having an additional backup point guard can be helpful for this team. And with everything we've heard about how good Ty Jerome was, the MVP of September, right? According to Cavs president of basketball operations, Kobe Altman, I think Ty Jerome is going to be playing. I've heard awesome things. Everyone that I've talked to has said Ty Jerome has been really, really great. We'll see what it looks like on a game floor. We'll see what it looks like when the season actually rolls around. But as of today, with all the positive stuff that we've heard about Ty Jerome, I don't know how I can't have him in the rotation. And then the 11th guy right now that I do think is going to be playing for the Cavaliers is Sam Merrill. And I've got Sam Merrill in that spot because I think that he has a skill set that the Cavs very much need, which is being a sniper from the outside. And I think that you can do more with him than the Cavs did with JB Bickerstaff. I think he's capable of more than just being a three-point specialist, but I think with how quick his release is and how good of a shooter he is, I think that he brings significant value. Plus, the Cavs are still going to be prioritizing defense. And I know Sam isn't thought of as some lockdown defender, and he's not, but he's a guy that knows where to be at the right time. He's not going to make those sorts of mistakes. I think he's going to do a lot of the little things correctly, and the added threat of another three-point just sniper on the wing is something that the Cavs can absolutely use. So those are the 11 that as of right now I have in the rotation with the Cavs. We'll see what it looks like. This is all subject to change, but I just wanted to put on record before the Cavs play preseason game number 1 where I think things are at. I will be updating this, of course, as preseason goes on, as we get more information. But I do want to say thank you to you for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. You can find the show anywhere you get your podcast, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else. Drop us a 5-star rating. Leave a nice review as well. Help grow the show. Tell a friend about Locked On Cavs. Cavs basketball is back tonight. You've got Locked On Cavs. I don't want your friends to be without Locked On Cavs. They deserve it too. Also, check us out on YouTube. Just search Locked On Cavs. If you're watching this video right now, yes, right now, I'm watching you watch this video. Click that like button, hit the subscribe button, and hit the notification bell so you know when the latest Locked On Cavs content goes up. I will talk to you after the Cavs play the Bulls in preseason game number 1 with Locked On Cavs.